Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I'm going to try not ramble on because I know you're here to try and make one of these. I'm going to teach you how to make one of them bags with my pattern right here, which is available on my website. I do truly believe that this pattern right here and the bag that we are creating today is super simple to do. All of the patterns that I've released so far and the patterns that I'm going to release going forward are super simple. The way I describe it and how I can do these lessons will make it easier and digestible for you to want to buy the pattern and give this a go. So today I'm going to just be doing this out of white canvas with some really simple lining and 2 zips and then some clasps and things like that. And then at the end we should have this bag right here. First step is to go to my website and buy one of these. They are $24.99. I've basically tried to make them as super easy as possible, so I've printed them out on A4 paper so you can print this off at your home. In your home printer, use a domestic machine or an industrial machine. That is up to you, but pretty much it is super simple and you can literally just print this out at home. And pretty much the first step is to open this. You get straight to your tools, materials and hardware. Tools you'll need is some fabric scissors, obviously, because you're cutting fabric. Pins and clips. I specifically use pins, you can use clip. And obviously a sewing machine. The hardware you're going to need for this is going to be 2 8.5 or 9-inch closed-end zippers, and then 1 15-inch closed-end zipper, 4 snap fasteners, and then you're going to need 1 closure. This closure can be anything. I'm using a fireman clasp, but you can grab anything online, whether that's like a buckle or anything along them lines. For fabrics, you need 45 by 55-inch fabric, heavier canvas preferably for the outside of your bag, and then for the inside of your bag, 35 by 35-inch lining. Then you need polyester webbing, which is 30 inches by 30 inches. You'll probably have some of that left over, but for now that is everything you need to be able to create this. So basically the next part of the process is how to use this pattern pack. Make sure to print at 100% scaling. If you've downloaded the pattern, you should have a print guide for Mac and Windows, so you should know exactly how to print if you follow the steps on the download. You should have all your pages here, which are your pattern pieces. And if you follow the scissor line with the dotted line and cut that out carefully, don't use fabric scissors, then you should end up with something like this. On the pattern pieces that you get in the booklet, they basically have an instruction of how many outer bits of fabric you should cut from them and how many lining bits of fabric you should cut from them also. I have done that right now, I followed that, and then you should end up with something that looks along the lines of this. And to make it easier for you guys, what I have done and what I think you should do too whilst doing this is basically label with masking tape and a pen what each panel is, so you don't get confused. And basically whilst you're sewing, you can just refer back to the pattern pieces to check they're the right ones, or whilst you watch me sew, you can see that you're sewing the right ones. And it's basically a small little thing that I thought to do, but I think it'll be really helpful. So yeah, let's get into sewing. Right, so the first thing we're going to focus on is these 3 pieces here, which are essentially your top front cover, your bottom right front cover, and your bottom left front cover. And you're going to use one of your 8.5-inch closed end zippers. I got this one for £1.75. It's literally just a jean fly zip. You want to pull the top front cover away for a bit. These are the 2 we're focusing on right now, and that is going to be placed directly in the middle of these 2. And how we can join this is basically by using one of these right here, which is a zipper sewing foot. If you don't have one of these, you can use a normal one. So we're essentially zipping down that zip and we're turning this bottom front cover right inside out and lining that up just above, as you can see there. You're doing is you're sewing all the way down. You're about halfway, so what you want to do is you want to lift your sewing foot and zip the zipper back up, stitch to the end. After you've done that and stitched all the way down, just like there, you basically turn it inside out, and you can start to see that if you press this fabric down like that, and you basically just want to do the exact same on the other side, but this time you want to start from the bottom by lining up just this right here, and then you just want to stitch down again. So then now when you pull this zip and then press these two seams down, so your next step is to swap that zipper foot back to your normal sewing foot, and then you basically want to press them seams down. So you want to run a stitch all the way down. And you basically just want to do the exact same on the other side here. Your next step is to basically attach the top front cover to the top of this. The way you do that is basically you want to lay your top front cover upside down, so you want to turn this inside out just like that, and you're basically connecting both the edges here, and you are running a stitch just along that like this. Turn this inside out like that, but basically you just want to run a top stitch all the way down this, the same as what you did earlier. And we will trim this so it looks clean. You've just sewn this whole panel together using all 3 panels and a zip. And this is basically, let me demonstrate, this is basically this front strap of the bag here. And if I open this zip here, you can see that there's lining on the inside of this front bit of fabric here, and you can see that there's lining on the inside of this back bit of fabric here. You want to take this new panel piece that you've basically just cut out, and you want to place it on 3 new bits of fabric. This bit of fabric, which is the lining facing down, this bit of fabric, which is the lining facing up, this, which is the outer fabric facing down. So it should look something like this. You basically just want to pin this down and cut it out. This right here is going to be your pocket when you open this and connect these parts together, which I'm going to show you now. And then this is going to be the inside of your pocket, and this is going to be the back side of your flap. Now you've got all 4 layers basically pinned together, you basically want to unpin them, and I essentially just want to show you that if you are thinking of customizing this bag, if you're wanting to customize this front part of the bag and this inside part of the bag, you want to add all your details now to this panel right here, and also this back one that is facing out. You can turn that one this way, and these are 2 panels that you can now customize. Once you've done that, lay them back on, and now we are only focusing on this front panel and this second from the top panel here, this lining fabric that is facing down. Put that front back on. You want to pin this back up. What we are doing here is we've basically got this front panel with this zipper in now. We can see this zip doesn't actually function, and it doesn't connect to the inside lining, just like this one does here. Just putting a pin right there. And then what we're doing is grabbing some scissors, following that zip all the way up in the lining fabric. You're running them scissors up, so you start to make something like this. And when you get close to that pin, you just want to cut a little triangle to connect each side, just like that. Now when you take this pin out, you can basically fold this in. So once you've folded this part in that you've just cut and folded the other side into and pinned it down, you basically just want to grab this triangle from the inside, and you basically just want to pull that in and square it off there, just like that. So your inside should just look like this. And you basically want to do the exact same as what you did on the outside. You want to run a top stitch all the way down here. So after you've completed that, you should have a completely functional pocket that now opens and you can see it has a clean inside lining. You just want to throw these two layers that are essentially together on top of these two layers here. Make sure that them two lining fabrics are sandwiched so they're facing each other. And then essentially you just want to stitch around the whole of this. Make sure you pin and stitch it. Now we have just finished this front flap, we're going to focus on this interior welted zip sort of pocket with the interior lining here. You're basically doing the same sort of concept as this, but it is a little bit easier. Let me show you. So the panel we're working on next is this front panel main, and essentially you want to grab your second 8.5 inch closed end zip. So what we're doing is, as you can see, 3 inches from the top of this panel there is a zip that opens up and has a pocket. So similarly to before, we're basically making an opening for this zip, but to make this a little bit easier for ourselves, line up the zip where you want it. So for example here you can see that this is a perfect area for the zip to go. You can see that there's a little bit of gap left here, so we can still stitch down the side of this fabric without hitting the metal. And the same with this side, you can see that there is a little bit of a gap left there that we can still sew down the side and not hit the zip. Grab a ruler and draw a line right there across your fabric. So I kind of forgot this bit, but you pretty much need to cut one more bit of lining that is going to be the inside of your pocket. Is you basically have cut down that line and you've cut out the fabric. Thank you, Post Jack, for explaining that, because I pretty much missed out a point. And you want to basically grab this part of your lining and you want to grab the front panel main part with the inside of your fabric together, just like that. And then you want to grab your zip and you're essentially slotting that into this little gap here. And then again, we are swapping over the sewing foot to the zipper foot again. Remember, this zip is sandwiched in. Zipper puller here should be facing down, and your outer fabric should be facing up, and your lining fabric should be facing down. Remember, you're leaving a little gap here. You're stitching down. You turn this inside out and then pull the zipper together. You've just created the inside lining of that pocket. You can pull the zipper out here and flatten that down. You can use some pins to pin that down too. And you're doing the exact same with the top. So remember, you've got to line them up here, just like that. And as you can see right there, you've just created the zip pocket, which the inside lining is now connected to. To finish this off, you want to grab lining facing upwards. As you can see, you've got the lining there. So now your pocket should be completely functional like that. Now we have just created these two front pieces. That is pretty much the hardest part of the process. Now the rest of this is going to be a little bit easier. So the next step is to add the zip onto these two panels here. Last night I was trying to show you how to do the zip, and pretty much my camera screen started like not responding. This has happened a few times now with this Sony camcorder. It's pretty much the camera I film everything on, all of these YouTube videos, and I keep having to order a new flex cable which connects the touchscreen because it keeps getting stuck on these yes or no pages, and there's literally no way for me to bypass that yes or no page without using the touchscreen. I can't use a remote, connect it to a HDMI or do anything, so this camera is completely unusable for the moment. So I'm going to try do the rest of this tutorial with POV on my iPhone and a mixture of cinematic shots with my iPhone, which makes it a little bit more challenging for me. But yeah, hopefully I can make it legible enough for you guys to understand what's going on. But yeah, no big camera anymore. I'm gonna have to get this fixed. It's kind of annoying because I'm going to America in the next few days. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Let's carry on with the tutorial. Right, so this is where we left off. Pretty much, if you've followed the tools correctly, you should have a 15-inch zip, which is the length of this panel right here. I don't have that. I'm not prepared. So basically, you just do the exact same thing, but yours matches up to the end, and mine, I just need to trim a little bit down. So you take it over to your machine, and again, you want to swap it to this zipper foot. Remember, if you don't have a zipper foot, then it's completely fine to do it with a normal foot. It will just look a tiny little bit different. The first step of what you're doing is you're basically grabbing this piece with the front facings upwards, where it says top zip structure piece, flipping that on its head, doing the exact same thing as what you did before, where you're stitching down the zip to turn inside out. You should have something that looks a little bit like this. So when you press that seam again, that should be the zipper in place. You want to do the exact same with the other side, but just make sure that you're matching it up to exactly where the edge of that is. Now what you want to do is you just want to swap it back to your normal sewing foot. And just like before, you're top stitching down that pressed edge there. So make sure that when you're pressing this, the zip is flat. So now you've done that, you should have something looking like this. So I'm just going to trim this zip down so it's perfect, and then we will go on to the next step. So as I said, this is where it starts to get a little bit easier. You're just building this structure around the bag so that when you open this main compartment, you know, it has that sort of like 3D feel to it. For that, you'll be using these two side pieces, which is this piece here, and you're basically using the bottom panel, which is bottom panel here. Turning that over, and you're stitching down this line here, and you're doing the exact same with this side right, turning and stitching down there. So you should have something that looks a little bit like this. You want to run a little top stitch all the way down there. You should have something looking like that, and now you just basically want to do the same with the other side. So now you should have something that looks a little bit like this. You pretty much just got the last piece of the puzzle, which is this bottom panel piece. Same thing with the front facing, and just sew that down there. So now, when you've turned it inside out, you should have something that looks like this, which this part here is the top of your bag. When you've sewn it, it will look something like that, and then that's the bottom of your bag. Right, the next part of the process, we want to put all of this to the side now. So all the pieces that you've stitched, you just want to put to the side, and you basically want to grab all of these pieces here. This next part of the process, you're going to need this wadding slash batting polyester stuff, and I use this for everything. I use this for quilting jackets, for adding padding in bags. It's super useful. You can add quilting sort of details on it. I use 4-ounce wadding, and you can grab this from your local fabric shop, or you can grab this online. It's super cheap per meter. If you grab it from a fabric shop, it'll only cost you like £3 for a half meter. 20 inch by 20 inch is what you're going to need for this project. The panels you need for this is the Velcro shoulder padding, which will fold over and act as the cushion for your shoulder. And then you also want to grab the top shoulder strap and the side shoulder strap. And you're basically, what we're doing here, sandwiching the polyester into the middle of these two pieces of fabric you have. So you should have two cut out of each one. Sandwiching that polyester into the middle of these two bits of fabric and then sewing around it. This basically just adds a little bit more cushion and structure to the bag. So let me show you. Ideally, what you want to do is you lay down the bit of fabric underneath and then line up the top fabric on top. And then you want to grab pins. Pins are your best friend for this. And you basically just want to throw a few pins so that you pin down that polyester material in the middle. Cutting roughly around this sandwiched polyester that you've just pinned together for all panels. And then you want to take them over to your sewing machine, and you want to run a stitch all the way around this. What we're going to focus on now is creating the whole structure of the bag so everything fits together. Basically, we're just going to create this whole structure out here. So yeah, let's go. So before we get into any of the construction of the structure of the bag so it starts taking shape, we pretty much want to be doing this binding here. So on all of the edges that are showing on the bag, there is this binding, as you can see here. It runs along there, along here, and also runs along the top of here. So basically you want to grab all the panel pieces which have edges that are showing. So that is the top shoulder strap, the side shoulder strap, the Velcro shoulder cover, and that front cover that flips over the bag. You're basically going to use whatever excess you've got left of your fabric, and you're cutting a 3-inch strip out of this. I like to do them all at once, so I like to just draw a 3-inch strip and then draw a 3-inch strip above, draw another one above that. What we're doing is we're folding one side in before the middle, and then we're folding the other side in just before the middle. So then when you fold that over, you're left with this edge here, which obviously doesn't have a seam on it. So how we're going to achieve this look is we're fold in the first side, and we're just going to run a stitch all the way down. So we should have something that looks a little bit like that. You want to do the exact same for the other side, so fold it over. If you don't leave a gap there and you fold it over and it overlaps the other sort of fold that you've just done like that when you go to fold it, it's going to be quite hard. So you want to leave a little gap in the middle here. Not too big, just a 1/2 inch, and then yeah, let's sew down this other side. So now we've got one of these strips of fabric that we've just folded over 2 times. For the side shoulder strap here, the binding only needs to be on this top part here and this bottom part here. It doesn't need to be on this right side, and it doesn't need to be on this small side up here. So what I'm going to do to bind this, lay one of the sides underneath, and then I'm just going to fold that over and then stitch that down. And as you go along, you should be able to match it up and stitch along that same stitch line that you've just done before. So it should look something like that. Binding along this edge here, the side edge on the left, and you're binding along this right edge here along the right. You're not doing the bottom, and you're not doing this top small part here. And you're not binding this top area here, but you are binding all the way around over this zip, around up. So when you get to the zip, just be careful because, you know, there's a bit of metal there. So you might need to do a bit of hand stitching around this, or just, you know, stop your stitches there, carry on the other side. If you're ribbing around your Velcro sort of strap, this is going to curl round and sort of go as your shoulder strap. But if you're a little bit confused about how to close this, you basically just want to leave a little gap, sew all around, and then once you've left that gap, you can pretty much turn these front facing so they're inside out, and you just want to stitch a line across here. So both sides it should look like that. You're going to grab your scissors, in my case these electric cutters. And when you've cut all that excess off, you should literally be able to turn it back inside out, and then you just want to run a stitch over again. So now you should be left with all of the panels that you've just binded. So the next part of the process is I'm going to add some little bits of hardware. So for the Velcro shoulder strap, I'm going to add some buttons, and for the front cover, I'm just going to add that fireman clasp there. And that's essentially just going to work the exact same as this, where I've added this fireman clasp and it clips onto this bottom bit here. For this, I am using the fireman clasp. If you don't have this fireman clasp, then you can use something else, another clasp that will connect to the bottom of the front cover. Second piece we'll do later, which will attach to the bottom of the whole bag. I'm pretty much just going to draw little circles in there with my pen so I know where to make my rivet holes. That is proper secured in there now. I was going to add 2 snap fasteners, which are right here, and make it so this Velcro bit sort of folds round. But the reason I called it a Velcro bit is because I didn't think I had any, but I do have some Velcro. You can either use snap fasteners or Velcro to do this. Obviously you're going to do this way cleaner, and you're going to match the colour of the Velcro and the thread to your main fabric and mark where your next bit of Velcro will be. So for my case it will just run along here. This can be kind of rough because it's not going to be on show, but you know, if you're making a crazy bag you want it to be nice and clean. So that should be your Velcro shoulder cushion strap. You want to throw that to the side. So essentially what we are doing now is we're attaching this front cover to this top shoulder strap. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to attach them to the back piece of the bag. So the next part of the process is that we're going to stitch this top shoulder strap here into the back of this panel piece right there. And as you can see here, I've done it a little bit differently because I've basically sewn both the top shoulder strap and the front cover together, and they both go onto the top of this back panel. But the reason why I've cut this line here is because some of you are probably going to be making this bag out of quite strong material. As you can see, this is 15-ounce duck canvas that I'm using. So if I was to basically sew both of these panels together, you know, you'd have to stitch through like a massive layer of fabric. It would be like 8 layers of canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to take these 2 panel pieces, the main back bottom and the main back top, and I'm going to stitch this and sandwich this in right there. So when this is all turned out, you'll have your strap in the right place here. It should sit exactly like this, but it will just sit a little lower down the bag like here. So you want to take your main back bottom, and then you want to lay your top shoulder strap down with the front facings both facing up. So you want your main back bottom facing up, and you want your top shoulder strap to be facing upwards. And then you want to take your main back top, and you just want to place that down on top, just right there. But if you want to make this easier and you have thicker fabric, which means that there's multiple layers here, to make it easier, you can just stitch down. You can just run a stitch along the 2 layers first. And then once you've done that, you can grab your main top back piece and then stitch along that too. So you should have something looking like that. And basically what you want to do is you want to lay that top shoulder piece over, and you want to run a top stitch just through this line here. So now you've finished putting your top shoulder strap and attaching it to the back piece of the outer fabric. This is quite an important segment. Here, this is your side shoulder strap, and basically it needs to be on the right side of the bag. This is because this curve here needs to be facing the same direction as this curve here. So both your curved parts of the shoulder strap should be facing the same way. The reason this is, basically this is a crossbody sling bag, so it should go over your shoulder just like that. So this needs to account with your body, and so does this. They need to be on the same side. If they're not on the same side, your shoulder bag won't fit exactly how it should. So make sure when putting this together, your shoulder straps are on the right way. Let me show you. So the way you're going to make sure that this is facing the right direction is you have this curved part of the top shoulder strap here, and then you have your side shoulder strap here. You basically want to make sure that it's laid down in the right position, and then you just want to flip it over so your front facings are both facing up. Taping these panel pieces is going to make this a lot easier for you guys. So if you tape them, you'll know which way is up, unless you have. So it should be left with something along the lines of that right there. And these are all the panels you should be left with now. So essentially we're just going to push the front cover to the side, so it's with the Velcro shoulder strap and the inside lining, and we should be left with these three components here. You should have your back ready to stitch, you should have your front panel main, and you should have the side and the zip, the top main compartment zip. Essentially what we're going to do now is we're just going to push this back in the strap to the side, and we're basically going to focus on these two panels right here. What you want to do is you basically just want to measure the midpoint of this top panel here, this zip structure piece, and you want to find the midpoint. I've just measured it, it's about 7.5, which is there. I'm just going to mark this with a piece of chalk. And then you basically want to find the midpoint of this front panel main. And then what we're going to do is we're going to connect these two midpoints that we've just found. You can turn this inside out now. And we're just going to connect that chalk mark that we've just made there to the chalk mark that is made there. Now what you can do is you can walk this around the bag to make sure that this is correct. What you want to do is you want to walk a stitch all the way round from that midpoint. Remember, whilst doing this front facing, so your zips and everything, you're basically sewing this inside out. I'm just running a stitch all the way round this. So as you move round, you should start to see the structure of the bag being created. So as you can see now, once you've stitched round the edge of these panels here, you can start to see the structure of the bag take a bit more place now. And before I forget, I'm just going to add the other part of that fireman clasp here. Now you can see the bottom of that fireman clasp is matching up and clicking in perfect. So now you can sort of see that this is coming together. You can see that that fireman clasp sort of sticks in perfectly. You have your front cover here, and you know that that now lines up with that other piece of the fireman clasp. So what you want to do is you just want to put that panel inside. You want to fold it in, stitching it down to the inside. So now you've stitched that down and folds over and clips perfectly into your fireman clasp. So now you can really start to see this take shape, and you can see the bag sort of coming together. You turn it inside out once more. And a very important part is you kind of want to undo your main zip just a little bit. We want to grab the back panel piece here, fold that top shoulder in. So the reason we folded this is because we're going to be putting this inside the bag, and this is just to sew the last stitch round. And the reason we've undone the zip a little bit is so we can actually undo the zip and then turn it inside out once it's finished. And remember, the top of the main back top has to be the top of, you know, the bag. You're kind of in the territory of like lots of layers of fabric now, so try and be careful when running this stitch round. So your bag should really be starting to take shape now. It pretty much is finished. You've just got to do two more things. So let me show you what them two things are. And I'm actually really happy with this. I think the lobster clasp is just, you know, off-centered a little bit. And then you've got like all the pockets. This white 15-ounce duck canvas is super nice also. So the two things you want to do before this bag is completely completed is that we're just going to create a little strap that connects this top strap to the bottom side strap, and we're also going to sew the lining together. So the lining is pretty straightforward. The same way that you've constructed this outside shell for the bag is the exact same way you're going to construct the lining, and then we're going to place it on the inside. The only difference is this zip structure piece these two pieces here won't have a zip on the inside. You just got to put it together exactly how it is. And if you want to add any details and any customizations, any pockets on the inside and stuff like that, now would be your chance whilst these panels are completely freed up. And then you want to start putting them together after. So you want to connect the two side panels to the bottom, and then you want to connect the zip piece to make that structured piece around, and then you just want to attach the front and the back. But I'll film it so you can see what I'm doing anyway. Oh, and just to mention, when you're attaching the zip structure bits to the inside lining, you just want to sew it with like a little fold here. And then you want to do the exact same thing to the other side. So now you've got your bag, you want to open the zip and grab your lining, and you pretty much just want to just put it inside the bag. And now the way to attach your lining to your bag is where you did them folds on the stitches right there on the lining. You should be able to line it all up with the zips on the inside. You want to line that up and throw a pin in there. The last step of the process before you are completely finished is to attach these two parts here. This is fully, I was going to leave this bit so it was fully down to your creativity of how you were going to finish this, because there is multiple ways. You could add a chain going across, you could add some elastic, you could add a buckle which you can sort of like adjust to whatever size you want. You want to fold your top shoulder strap in and your side shoulder strap up, and this gap which is remaining here is essentially what you want to sort of like connect up, so then you have the full bag working so it can go over your shoulder. The reason I haven't put this part of the pattern in is because it is super straightforward. You're just literally cutting a 6-inch strap and then you're folding it over, top stitching it and connecting it to here and here. If you didn't want to do that, the creativity is up to you. You can add a chain, you can add whatever, an adjustable strap. This is all down to you now. I'm just going to do the 6-inch strap, and then I'm going to connect the Velcro bit in there, and then we will have a finished bag. And just like that, we have finished the bag. I love this pattern so much. Like, I think that the pockets, all of the different pockets, the lining and how it works in each of the pockets, that perfect fireman's clasp at the front of it. I love that sort of like Velcro strap that goes over it, and it fits so nicely around like the body. So you can wear it on the front or you can wear it on the back. I actually wear my version of this bag, which is that black one I've been showing you as a reference through this video. I wear that bag every day. Like I literally went to Italy and used it as a tool bag for all my tools and like bits of fabric and threads that I could put in there, and it worked perfectly. I think if you're planning on making one of these, then go grab the pattern. It is only $24.99 and it is a perfect way to support me. The link's in the bio, and that will give you the template to be able to make this. And I truly think and believe that everyone can make this bag. It is intermediate on the scale. I have like a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being like you could sew for a job and 1 being like you've never picked up a sewing machine before. So it's kind of in the middle of that, but I think that anybody could do this if they were to follow this video correctly. It's kind of annoying the camera died halfway through, but to be honest, it's kind of a blessing because it meant that I could do the rest of the video in POV, which I think is really nice too. It's just the audio is not as good now. But hopefully the POV meant that you guys could like view everything from like a perspective and really understand what I was trying to sort of like say. But yeah, the patterns on my website, I've got 3 patterns on now. I've got this one, and this one. So there's 3 patterns on. I'm going to be dropping one every month. So every month through this year, there is a new pattern with a new how-to video, and I'm very excited to share and showcase them to you. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe, stay tuned, stick around, cool videos. The next city, the Rome version of my Italian series, is coming out through this next week too. If you haven't checked that out, that is this. You want to throw it?
You want to catch?
Yeah, go on.
Aye.
Perfect. This is exactly what I needed. How much?
It's 6 euro per meter and 1.50. One and a half.
I'll get 2 meters of this. Is that okay? So I've just come across this fabric shop which seems... So yeah, if you like the look of that, stick around. And if you like the look of this bag and you want to give it a go, stick around. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next video.